Caitlin Clark pulling up from long range. Tiffany Hayes turning around, looking at CC. Caitlin Clark says, let's go. Me and you right now. And as soon as that occurred, Tiffany Hayes couldn't hit a layup for the rest of the game.
Holy shit, they can't hit a layup to save their life. They had open shots. They had drives to the basket. They were way off.
The Indiana Fever entered the game fully aware that the Golden State Valkyries were going to bring a physical style of play. Around the league, there's been a growing conversation about how to contain Caitlin Clark. Teams often try to disrupt her rhythm by applying heavy pressure, body contact, double teams, and constant defensive attention before she can settle into the game. However, what Tiffany Hayes and the Valkyries discovered is that this approach can sometimes backfire. When Clark is agitated or engaged emotionally, responding, talking back, and showing more fire, the entire tone of the game can shift. That's exactly how this matchup unfolded. Early in the first quarter, Tiffany Hayes came out aggressive and in rhythm. She drove hard to the basket, finished through contact, and knocked down difficult shots. After one score, she clapped right in Caitlin Clark's direction, and the moment was clearly caught on camera. It didn't take long for things to escalate beyond a typical regular season feel. The crowd grew louder, both benches got involved in the chatter, and the intensity quickly rose. At that point, Caitlin Clark's demeanor changed. She appeared more focused, more intense, and noticeably more fired up.
Caitlin Clark makes her triumphant return. She was this close to getting that double-double. You know what Stephanie White did? She said, hey, you, Missy, come here. Sit down right next to me on the bench. No double-double for you, Caitlin.
The speaker encourages viewers who support Caitlin Clark and believe she is becoming the face of the league to show their support in the comments by typing Caitlin Clark GOAT 100%.
WNBA players hate Caitlin Clark. This is to end the first half. Janelle Saloon gives her a nice shove in the back, gets a rebound, gives her a little bit of an elbow. Both players were given technicals for this. I don't think either should have received technicals. Physical basketball.
Then came the moment everyone is now talking about. Caitlin Clark brought the ball up past half court, saw Tiffany Hayes in front of her, and immediately pulled up for a deep logo 3 right in her face. The shot went in, and the arena erupted. But the impact wasn't just the basket itself. After hitting it, Clark walked toward Hayes, locked eyes with her, and started talking trash. Fans believe she said, "I am the real deal." From that point, the momentum seemed to shift completely. The Valkyries appeared shaken. Tiffany Hayes, who had started strong, lost her rhythm as the game went on, missed layups, rushed attempts, and lost control offensively. Meanwhile, Indiana's defense tightened, and Caitlin Clark took over the game, becoming increasingly difficult to handle on both ends.
This happened. They called it a flagrant foul. Veronica Burton goes to the line, shoots a free throw, misses the free throw. The Indiana Fever weren't on the floor while she missed the free throw. So what do? They give Veronica Burton 2 extra free throws. I'm telling you, these refs are incapable.
What stood out was that it wasn't just the deep logo threes. It was the complete Caitlin Clark skill set on display. Deep pull-up shots, precise passing through tight windows, mid-range fadeaways, aggressive transition play, and even contributing physically on defense and with strong screens. She ended the game with 22 points and 9 assists, narrowly missing a double-double while dictating the tempo from start to finish. What made it even more impressive was the opponent she was facing. Golden State entered the matchup with a reputation for one of the league's more physical defensive styles. Their coaches had even publicly stated before the game that their plan was to pressure Clark, disrupt her rhythm, and use physicality to throw her off. Instead, that approach seemed to have the opposite effect. She looked even more composed, confident, and dominant under that pressure.
Caitlin Clark and the Fever showed out in the third quarter. Aaliyah Boston, 20 points on 8 of 15, 16 boards, 3 blocks. And Caitlin Clark, 17 of 15, 4 of 9 from three-point range, 22, 9 assists, 2 rebounds, 1 steal, 1 block. Her three-point shot is back.
One analyst later said that Clark no longer looked like she was just trying to stay composed and polite on the court. Another compared her competitive edge to Kobe Bryant, suggesting that the more intense and emotional the game becomes, the more dominant she appears. It's a point that's hard to argue with. After this performance, the broader conversation around her began to shift. Sports shows started debating whether she is already in the MVP conversation this season. Early in the season, she has been leading the league in assists, sitting near the top in scoring, and continuing to stretch what people consider range in the WNBA. Former players and analysts have also noted that there hasn't been a guard quite like her in terms of how far she pulls defenses away from the basket on a nightly basis. Golden State experienced that firsthand in this matchup. The Valkyries kept rotating different defensive looks onto her, switching matchups, sending traps, and increasing physical pressure, but none of it seemed to slow her down. Every adjustment they made was met with another decisive response from Clark. However, the game wasn't only defined by her offense. What stood out to many fans was her physical toughness. Late in the second quarter, after a hard play under the basket led to contact, tensions rose quickly. Players got into a shoving exchange, and the situation escalated enough for officials to step in. Clark didn't show any hesitation in the moment, standing her ground as things got heated. Technical fouls were issued, players had to be separated, and her Fever teammates immediately stepped in to back her up. The crowd reacted strongly, and the atmosphere became even more intense. For many, the moment carried symbolic weight. For a while, critics had questioned whether Clark could handle physical defense at the professional level. The idea that Clark could be rattled or physically overwhelmed didn't show up in this game. Instead, she seemed to lean into the intensity rather than avoid it. Rather than getting pushed around or thrown off, she played through the contact and the chaos like a star fully comfortable in that environment. Once that shift happened, the Valkyries didn't really have an answer for her impact. What added more attention to the story was what happened after the final buzzer. In the post-game media session, Tiffany Hayes appeared visibly frustrated when discussing the game. When asked about the Fever's offense and Clark's performance, she downplayed it by pointing to small details and suggesting the loss came down to things her team needed to clean up. However, many fans weren't convinced by that framing. From their perspective, this wasn't about minor mistakes. It was a game where Caitlin Clark clearly took control and dictated the outcome.
This may have been the night that Caitlin Clark put the league on notice. I've had enough of y'all's bullshit.
You don't just accidentally neutralize a player pulling up from 30 feet. You don't stumble into stopping someone who's hitting long-range shots, threading full-court passes, controlling the tempo, and forcing defenders to stretch far beyond their comfort zone. At some point, it becomes less about excuses and more about acknowledging impact. And that's what triggered a huge reaction online. Clips of Clark's deep logo, 3 right in Tiffany Hayes' face, spread quickly across social media. The stare-down afterward was replayed constantly, with fans highlighting it as one of the most intense moments of the season. Sports media personalities also began commenting on how different Clark appears this year mentally, suggesting a noticeable shift in her demeanor and confidence. Many pointed out that this wasn't the same smiling rookie teams tried to test last season. This came across like a superstar who's fed up with the disrespect and is responding on the court, and the numbers seem to support that. Clark is putting together one of the most impressive offensive starts we've seen from a guard in the WNBA. She's scoring efficiently, leading the league in assists, and consistently making shots that force entire defenses to rethink their game plans. Teams are now picking her up near half court, and even that hasn't solved the problem. That's what makes her so difficult to contain. If defenders press her higher, she blows past them. If they drop back, she pulls up from extreme range. If they send traps, she finds teammates with sharp, accurate passes. Golden State tried multiple defensive schemes, but eventually ran out of viable answers. What stands out most is that she seemed to get more comfortable and more effective as the game became more emotional and physical. That combination is what makes her such a tough challenge for opposing teams.
This game would absolutely sell out. People bought tickets thinking Kate Martin was going to be in this game.
Even the physical moments seemed to fuel Clark rather than slow her down. A hard collision led to technical fouls before halftime, and another play saw her called for a flagrant after setting a powerful screen that knocked a defender off balance. The crowd reacted loudly, teammates stepped in, and instead of easing off, Clark ramped up her intensity, attacking the basket harder, showing more emotion, and playing with noticeable confidence and swagger. At one point, She even laughed after hitting a deep three while staring toward the opposing bench, signaling total control of the moment.